Hi everybody, welcome to English Digest. I'm Pat.
And I'm Tom.
Today we're going to be looking at a couple of news stories in our regular Newswatch unit. We're going to look at one thing that happened in Chiayi, in the center of Taiwan. First, we're going to be looking at something that happened globally. It was huge news, of course, back in November last year during the Paris terrorist attacks.
Exactly. So that is one of our news stories for today. The title of the first story is Paris Attacks Shock the World. And then later on, as Pat said, we're going to talk about something that happened right here in Taiwan, down in Chiayi. A story that involved a whale that was rescued, but it was later found dead. We'll find out what that is about right now. So let's read through the entire contents of our lessons one time.
Terrorist attacks killed more than 120 people in Paris, France, on the night of November 13th, 2015. Several restaurants and cafes were targeted, as was an international soccer match. The heaviest casualties came during a hostage situation at a rock concert, however. Most of the terrorists blew themselves up with suicide bombs, while at least one was shot. The Islamic State, IS, claimed responsibility for the attacks. France immediately declared a state of emergency, closed its borders, and began investigating anyone connected to the attackers. French President François Hollande declared France's military would step up attacks on the IS at once. Around the world, people expressed support and sympathy for France on social media sites. Meanwhile, others pointed to the increasing number of Syrian refugees in Europe as being part of the problem. They feel that among those genuinely needing sanctuary are terrorists intending to plot further attacks. Some EU countries, such as Poland, said they would stop accepting migrants. The problems posed by both the refugee crisis and the IS continue to be a major challenge for the global community.
Whale rescued and later found dead in Chiayi. A sperm whale was found dead off the coast of Chiayi last year. Whales can become stranded for many reasons, including disease, injury, and extreme weather conditions. What makes this situation especially sad is that the same whale was rescued just days earlier after it was found stranded near Chiayi's shoreline. The whale, which was 15 meters long and weighed 10 tons, was rescued by being dragged out to open waters after getting stuck at low tide. Local marine biologists conducted an autopsy of the whale after it was found. They discovered a large number of plastic bags and fishing nets inside of its stomach. The whale could have died from many things, such as heart disease or infected injuries. However, the trash found in its stomach likely played a key role as well, since the garbage could have reduced the whale's appetite. The whale probably ate the bags because they looked similar to giant squid, which account for 80% of a sperm whale's diet. The incident thus serves as a reminder of the alarming marine pollution problem.
Hi guys, welcome back. Not particularly happy news we're sharing with you with this unit. Unfortunately, that seems to be the way of the world. A couple of stories from back last year. We're going to start by looking at the Paris attacks, of course. They were huge news. Everybody heard about them immediately. The article starts just by giving you some of the first, most basic facts. Terrorist attacks killed more than 120 people in Paris, France, on the night of November 13th, 2015. I don't know if any people made the connection between it being Friday the 13th and... Which,
wow.
So...
now that you mention it, it was on Friday the 13th.
Very unlucky day in Western culture, sometimes known as Black Friday, although the name is used for other things as well. Yeah, it was obviously an awful, horrible situation for anybody to hear about, whether they had been to Paris or knew anyone French, or just caring about what's happening in the world.
Indeed. So that's the opening line here. It says the attacks in Paris were terrorist attacks, and 120 people died as a result, and several restaurants and cafes were targeted, as was an international soccer match. Okay, so in this sentence we have the word target, but it is being used as a verb. To target something means that you select or choose something to be your object of attack. It could be your goal, your target, for example. You're targeting sales of 50,000 units this month, if you're a salesman, for example. So yes, indeed, the terrorists targeted restaurants and cafes where there were a lot of French people out for Friday night and having fun and eating their filet mignon and stuff like that. And also they targeted an international soccer match, which of course is a competition between two football or soccer teams.
Yeah, it was France and Germany. They were playing at the Stade Francais, I think it was. And luckily, the guy who was looking to get a bomb into that was stopped before he got into the stadium.
Ooh.
However, the heaviest casualties came during a hostage situation at a rock concert. So the word casualty means an injury or a death, and we usually use the word casualties to talk about the number of people who have died in war, in an accident, or in some kind of, terrible global situation like an earthquake, a disaster, a typhoon, something like that. And casualties doesn't literally mean deaths. It can be used to talk about people who are badly wounded as well. So the word casualties includes both dead and wounded.
Okay, and we have the word hostage here. It's a hostage situation. A hostage is being used as an adjective here to describe something that has to do with a hostage situation. A hostage is a person who is kind of kept as a prisoner, and then they threaten somebody else. We're going to kill this person if you don't give us some money, for example. That would be a hostage. And again, this is a hostage situation. I guess the people took some people hostage and were threatening to kill them. This happened at a rock concert, rock and roll music, where a lot of people had gone to watch. Most of the terrorists blew themselves up with suicide bombs, while at least one was shot. So in this sentence, we have the phrase to blow up, which means to explode, like a bomb or something. It could also talk about your temper, like, Jason blew up after he got the bad news. He was really angry. But to hear blew up is the past tense of blow up. And so, yes, they destroyed themselves with bombs. These were suicide bombs, bombs that were designed to kill themselves and other people.
Yeah, they're usually worn in the form of a jacket as part of the clothing, and it basically means they won't be captured by the army, by the police, and punished or forced to tell secrets or anything like that. So a lot of terrorists do use suicide bombs as kind of like we die as well as everybody else, and it seems to work for them as a kind of a way to both escape punishment and also become martyrs, M-A-R-T-Y-R, which is somebody who has kind of died for a religious or other political cause. So, speaking of religion, the Islamic State, which is known variously as IS, ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, and a number of other names, the Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attacks. To claim responsibility for something means to say that you did it, and you say that publicly. So they said, yes, it was us. Those were our people. We committed these terrorist attacks.
You can also take responsibility, for example, but not in this situation. If you are supposed to get married or something, you should take responsibility for your family. But here, they claimed responsibility. Yes, we did it. What are you going to do about it? Well, France immediately declared a state of emergency. It also closed its borders and began investigating anyone connected to the attackers. So this was the government of France's reaction. They did this right away. They immediately declared a state of emergency. If you declare something, you state it formally to the public. And in this case, they had a state of emergency. Emergency just means it's a situation in which things are pretty bad and something needs to be done quickly, or else something even worse is going to happen. That's why hospitals have an emergency room, for example, if you've had some kind of accident that requires immediate attention. So yes, they declared this situation or state of emergency. They also closed their borders. Borders, of course, are the line between one country and another. Taiwan doesn't really have any borders because it's an island, but here they closed its borders, not letting people in and not letting people leave. And also they began investigating anyone connected to the attackers. To investigate means to collect information in order to solve a crime.
Yep, while this was going on, the French president, François Hollande, declared France's military, so there's the word declare again, he said the military, the army, would step up attacks on the IS at once, okay? So to step up something means to start doing it more often and with more strength, more effort. So if you're studying and you go, okay, I need to step up my efforts here, you kind of study harder. Here, France's military stepped up their attacks. So they started sending more planes, they started making more bombs, and I'm sure you saw the news, they started hitting IS's oil fields and various other IS things in the Middle East. Pretty much within a day or two of these attacks, France started fighting back.
Indeed, and around the world, people expressed support and sympathy for France on social media sites. They were also shining red, white, and blue lights on various landmarks around the world, on the pyramids of Egypt and on Sydney's Opera House and stuff like that. So people were expressing their support and their sympathy. Sympathy just means feelings that you have for someone who is in a bad situation. You express sympathy to somebody if someone has died in their family. You would send them a sympathy card. We're sorry that your grandfather passed away. He was a great man. We knew him, and he's surely going to be missed. So they expressed support and sympathy for France on these social media sites, which would be what? Facebook, Twitter, Line,
Instagram, yes,
Instagram,
various
stuff
things
like that.
Okay, there were other problems complicating this issue. Others, meanwhile, others pointed to the increasing number of Syrian refugees in Europe as being part of the problem. We've covered refugees in some of our other articles previously. Refugees are people escaping from their home countries because they are being persecuted, they're being attacked, they've lost their homes. And of course, many of these right now are from Syria. They've left Syria because of IS, because of the Syrian civil war, and they've come into Europe and trying to find new homes. But some people say, well, this is actually part of the problem related to the terrorists, because they feel that, yes, there are genuine refugees, people who genuinely need sanctuary, but hidden inside those numbers are terrorists intending to plot or plan further attacks. So the word genuinely just means really or truthfully, while sanctuary means a safe place, somewhere where they can be protected, where they won't be attacked by other people. So yes, they're saying some people really are, most refugees are coming to here for safety, but some people believe that within those groups of people, there are a few secret terrorists who are getting into European countries, intending more terrorist attacks.
They're sneaking in, basically, and some EU countries, such as Poland, for example, said they would stop accepting migrants. A migrant is a person who moves from place to place, usually because they're working here and there. And the problems posed by both the refugee crisis and the IS continue to be a major challenge for the global community. Yes, we need to keep asking, what are we going to do about these problems in the Middle East with the refugees and the terrorists? Okay, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about a whale and Jai in just a second, but let's hear from your Chinese teacher right now.
大家好，我是 Alice， 欢迎收听 English Digest。今天我们要来介绍 Unit5 News Watch 的2则新闻。首先第一篇新闻是 Paris attacks shock the world， 巴黎恐怖攻击震惊全球。课文第一段叙述了巴黎恐怖攻击的过程。我们看到第一段的第二句 Several restaurants and cafes were targeted, as was an international soccer match. 有数家餐厅和咖啡店被作为攻击目标，同样的情况也在一场国际足球比赛中发生。这里我们来看个惯用语 as was。 as 在这里指的是 to add that what you have said is also true of somebody or something else， 表示 as 接的子句和主要子句有相同的情况。此时的 as 子句常用倒装句呈现，也就是 as 加 be 动词或助动词，再加主词。例如 My friend usually studies in the library, as do I。 我朋友常在图书馆读书，而我也一样。接着看到本段最后一句 The Islamic State, IS, claimed responsibility for the attacks。 伊斯兰国声称这些攻击是他们发起的。片语 claim responsibility for something 意思是 say officially that you are responsible for something that has happened。 例如 The woman has claimed responsibility for the murder。 那位女人声称那件谋杀案是她做的。课文第二段叙述法国如何因应恐怖攻击。本段最后一句 Around the world, people express support and sympathy for France on social media sites。 世界各地的人们在社群网站上表达对法国的支持和同情。名词 sympathy sympathy 是同情的意思。要表达同情某人，可以说 express or show sympathy for somebody， 或是 sympathize with somebody sympathize 动词，有同情的意思。例如Philip sympathizes with those who have lost their family in the earthquake。 菲利普同情那些在地震中失去家人的人们。同样的，我们也可以说 have or take pity on somebody， 怜悯某人。名词 pity P-I-T-Y 意思是怜悯、同情。举个例子 We took pity on the beggar,So we gave him some money to buy food. 我们同情那位乞丐，所以给他一点钱买东西吃。或是也可以用动词 pity somebody。例如 I pitied the mother who has to work and take care of her children alone. 我同情那个必须工作且独立照顾孩子的母亲。
And we're going to take a short break right now, but please stay tuned.
Okay, guys, welcome back. We're switching to our second story now, which is about a whale rescued and later found dead in Chiayi. So this is a story about a sperm whale who was found dead off the coast of Chiayi last year. A sperm whale is a type of whale. It's one of the bigger ones. They have that really large kind of giant face. It's kind of squarish. If you've ever seen Disney's Pinocchio, then the whale at the end of that movie is a sperm whale. And it was found dead off the coast, so that means just in the waters near where the land is, off Chiayi last year.
Indeed, and whales can become stranded for many reasons, which include disease, injury, and extreme weather conditions, like a typhoon or a tornado or maybe even an earthquake, who knows? Now, in this sentence, we have the word stranded, which is related to the verb to strand. If you're stranded somewhere, you're stuck there and you can't escape. Maybe you saw a Tom Hanks movie where he was on an island by himself and couldn't leave the island. He was stranded on that island. I think that movie was called Cast Away. But here, the whales can become stranded, stuck on the beach basically because of disease. Maybe they're sick or injury. Maybe they got hurt. They were attacked by a shark or something. And again, because of extreme weather conditions, like I said, a typhoon, a hurricane, an earthquake, etc.
Okay, now what makes this situation especially sad is that the same whale, so the one that they found dead, had been rescued just days earlier after it was found stranded near Chiayi's shoreline. Okay, so they found it. They found this whale. It was stuck, like Tom said. It may have been hurt, or it may have just been pushed there by the tides and it couldn't get out. They found it. They rescued it. They sent it out to sea. And just a few days later, they found it dead, basically. They just found the body just off the coast. So this poor whale, firstly, it got stuck, and they rescued it. And unfortunately, it ended up dead. They couldn't help it enough, I suppose.
Yeah, and note here, what here does not mean that this sentence is a question. It's saying the thing. What makes this situation really sad is because it was actually rescued just a few days earlier, which is probably pretty heartbreaking for the people who rescued it. It ended up dead anyway. And here it says the whale, which was 15 meters long and weighed 10 tons, was rescued by being dragged out to open waters after getting stuck at low tide. Here we have the verb to drag, and it's being used with the preposition out, to drag out, which means it's pulled along something, but it's difficult because it's on the sand there, it's on the beach, so you have to use a lot of force. You might have to drag someone out of a party, for example, because they're having such a good time and they need to get home and go to bed.
Okay, meanwhile, the phrase low tide, this is when a lot of the beach can be seen and the water is kind of far away and quite shallow. The opposite, high tide, that's when the water covers a lot more of the beach and the land and the water is a lot deeper. So you can imagine how the whale kind of swims in during high tide when it can swim in the water. Then suddenly the tide goes out, it's low tide, and there's not enough water for the whale to swim back across the land again. So that's how they get stuck. Okay, so meanwhile, local marine biologists conducted an autopsy of the whale after it was found. So a marine biologist is a scientist, studies biology of the sea. That's what we mean by marine biology. I knew a lot of marine biologists at university. They studied all sorts of things, the way the water moved, the animals that lived there, the plants, the weather conditions, the pollution in the water, everything. So that's what marine biologists study. And they conducted an autopsy. An autopsy is when you examine the body of a dead person, or in this case thing, to find out what happened to it, what killed it, what was the cause of death of this particular creature, or more usually person.
And an autopsy usually requires cutting into the body, so after they did that, they discovered a large number of plastic bags and fishing nets inside of its stomach. And the whale could have died from many things, such as heart disease or infected injuries. Okay, so they did find these plastic bags and fishing nets inside the stomach of the whale, but they're saying here that that is not necessarily the reason why the whale died. It could have died from many things. For example, heart disease. Maybe it had a heart attack or something. Or infected injuries. Again, maybe it was bitten by a shark, and then viruses.
Or scraped itself on the rocks trying to swim out.
Or a boat hit it or something. And later on, those injuries did not heal properly, so they became infected from bacteria or things that started to grow in those injured areas.
However, the trash found in its stomach, all these fishing nets and the plastic bags, likely played a key role as well. So what we're saying is this is not a coincidence that the whale died after eating all these things. It's likely, it's very probable that these things played a key role or an important part, since the garbage could have reduced the whale's appetite. So its stomach is full of all of these things. It can't digest them. It can't kind of turn them into energy. But because its stomach is kind of full of them, it doesn't eat as much. It's got a lower appetite. Your appetite is your desire for food. So if you have a big appetite, you eat a lot of food. If you might say, oh, I'm not feeling too good today, I don't have much of an appetite, it means you don't really want to eat anything. So this whale didn't really want to eat, and so it probably, lost a lot of strength, lost power, maybe couldn't heal itself, or just didn't have enough energy to go up and breathe, because of course whales do need to breathe air.
Something like that. And the whale probably ate the bags because they looked similar to giant squid, which account for 80% of a sperm whale's diet. Squid, of course, is a creature that lives in the sea It's both singular and plural in this form. 1 squid, 2 squid, 3 squid. It's kind of like a smaller octopus. It kind of looks like an octopus, but they're different kinds of creatures. But here, the whale saw these plastic bags and thought, hey, that looks like squid. I think I'll have myself a bite.
Yep, and because squid account for 80% of a sperm whale's diet. So this phrase, account for, means kind of make up, okay, or take the place of, something like that. So what it's saying is that 80% of a sperm whale's diet is giant squid. So 4 meals out of 5, it's eating giant squid, or 80% of the things it eats are giant squid. That's what we mean with this phrase, account for. So it sees the bags, it thinks, yep, squid. I'll have me some of that. I'll eat that. It didn't work out too well for the whale, unfortunately.
And this event or incident thus serves as a reminder, or it reminds us of the alarming marine pollution problem. Alarming here just means it's pretty dangerous. It's a pretty serious situation, and we need to do something about it fast. Otherwise, we're going to have big trouble in the future. Okay, this is an alarming situation. We need to do something about it. So hopefully there will be no more whales stranded on the beaches of Chiayi or elsewhere in Taiwan. Okay, thank you for listening to our explanation, but we still need to hear from our Chinese teacher. Let's listen.
接下来我们看第二篇新闻 Whale rescued and later found dead in Chiayi 抹香鲸之死海洋污染的警钟。这则新闻写到，一只抹香鲸死亡之后，经过海洋生物学家解剖，发现它的胃里塞满大量的塑胶袋和渔网，再次提醒了人们海洋污染的严重。课文第二段第一句 Local marine biologists conducted an autopsy of the whale after it was found. 鲸鱼被发现后，当地的海洋生物学家做了尸体解剖。我们看到动词 conduct C-O-N-D-U-C-T 在课文中是进行的意思。要表达做实验，我们可以说 conduct or do or perform or carry out an experiment. 例如The scientists conducted the experiment in a very cautious manner. 那些科学家以非常谨慎的态度做实验。接下来看到本段第三句 The whale could have died from many things. 这只鲸鱼可能死于许多原因。以及第四句 Since the garbage could have reduced the whale's appetite. 因为垃圾可能会降低鲸鱼的食欲。这边的 could have 加 VPP 是表示对过去事件的推测。例如 The attack could have been carried out by terrorists. 那起攻击事件可能是恐怖分子做的。对过去事件十分确定或可能性很高的推测，可以用 must have 再加 VPP。例如 Your car keys are not in this room, so you must have left them elsewhere. 你的车钥匙不在这个房间里，所以你一定是把它放到其他地方去了。以上就是今天的课程，谢谢收听。
Okay, guys, that is the end of today's News Watch. We've looked at a couple of pieces of news. Of course, reading news websites is a good way to learn interesting new English words, as well as getting an idea of what's going on in the world. But that's all for today. Thanks for listening. I'm Pat.
And I'm Tom.
For English Digest, we'll see you again later. Bye-bye.
Bye.